Thanks for staying with us on the Saturday morning. We are taking a live look right now at Vatican City, where thousands gathered this morning for the funeral of Pope Francis. His coffin arrived at the burial site, St. Mary Major Basilica in Rome, just a short time ago. Not only are millions in Rome there to pay their respects to Pope Francis on this historic day, but so are world leaders. That includes President Donald Trump and the First Lady. It's her birthday, by the way. We now know he met with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky before the services to discuss a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. White House saying this was a very productive discussion. Here with us now is Republican strategist Matt Klink and Democratic strategist and federal government legislative attorney Dante Mills. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you.
Anna, good morning.
Matt, I'll start with you. Zelensky saying the meeting was symbolic. Will we be talking about that shot? I was talking about it with one of our production managers. We think it's iconic to see both these men in the middle of St. Peter's Basilica, two chairs pulled, talking world events, huddled together. Talk about the significance of this moment.
Well, for both Vladimir Zelensky and Donald Trump, I think it's a much better image than the last one they had, where Donald Trump essentially threw Vladimir Zelensky out of the White House. So I think it does signify a greater sense of urgency by both the Trump administration and by President Zelensky to try to make some progress on a peace deal, although we're hearing that there are still some pretty significant differences. You know, one, the Ukrainians want to retake the Crimea that they haven't held since 2014, and they also want to use Russian money held in Western banks as reparations, which, if we know from history, from World War I and the Versailles Treaty, that didn't work very well for Germany, and Germany lost the war, and Russia's not losing right now.
Yeah, a lot of Russia's concessions are being met while Zelensky says his aren't, at least for Ukraine. Dante, that's a really good point that Matt made. The last time we saw Zelensky and Trump together was that tense conversation in the Oval Office. But your thoughts on this image and what it could signify now?
A lot. Imagine, right, this is the perfect place to talk peace. And the Pope, in fact, talked about bringing peace to these wars, both here and in Israel and Gaza. And I think it's a perfect setting if they can get it done. I just don't know if they can. Just going back briefly to the Pope, we know Trump met with the Pope before. Vice President J.D. Vance recently met with the Pope. Trump, when asked about going to the Pope, and for this, he talked about the vote he received from his Catholic voters. But he's here. He should be there, as all world leaders should. This is an iconic moment. And a life that should be celebrated. Now, going back to this war, I think it's going to be difficult to get it done because Russia is not asking to concede anything. And in fact, as you see, it seems as every time they get close to a peace deal, Russia pushes further with the hopes that the deal just kind of ends them where they are. So they try to make as much gain as possible when these talks get close so that they can just have the territory that they're occupying at the time. That's what they want, and that's what President Zelensky is pushing back against. He doesn't want to concede the territory they're in. He wants his land back. And it seems as if the United States isn't backing that. They just want everything to stop as is, and people decide to just kind of walk away. I don't know if that's going to be possible for the Ukrainian people without getting their land back.
Matt, that's true. One possible sticking point is Trump doubling down that Crimea will stay under Russian control. What's the best case scenario today coming out of this meeting?
The Ukrainians are never going to get the Crimea back. The Russians have held it since Barack Obama was president when they first took it. Look, right now, the Russians occupy roughly 20% of Ukrainian territory. I mean, if the war continues without U.S. military assistance, ultimately, Ukraine will run out of people to fight this war. So it is in the Ukrainians' best interest to end this war. And Europe, not the United States, should provide a security guarantee. And I can also tell you this. Ukraine will never be in NATO. And that's just the reality. If you look at Russian history, they have been attacked from the West every single time. That's where they fear the attack is going to come. And Russia and Ukraine have been fighting each other for centuries. So, look, it's a fool's errand to say Ukraine is going to win this war. They're just not going to do it.
President Trump has almost said as much. Matt, let me stick with you for a second. There's new reporting that Russia says all Ukrainian troops have left the Kursk region shortly after Zelensky met with Trump. Again, that happened just a few hours ago. What challenge does Trump have to push President to make this peace deal happen?
Well, look, the onus right now is primarily on Zelensky to actually sit down at the table. And look, Dante makes a very valid point that that Putin keeps on moving the deck chairs on this thing and tries to seek a better deal. But ultimately, Russia is doing better than the Ukrainians are right now, simply because they have more resources, they have more bodies that they can throw at this that are literally cannon fodder. And all Trump wants to do is stop the killing. And I think that if Ukraine can get the security guarantees from Europe, who needs to step up in this matter, then that could be a potential pathway to peace, but it's not going to be easy. And I think Dante is 100% spot on that.
Yeah, Dante, I see you're shaking your head. I want to give you the last word, or nodding your head, I should say.
The security guarantee, he's absolutely correct. If they're going to concede the land that Russia has already moved into, they're going to at least want some kind of guarantee that they're not going to come back in 5 years or 7 years and take more.
Exactly.
And that's what's going to do it. I think that will say, okay, just allow, we're going to end where it is, but we're going to guarantee that they're not going to invade again and come back into your territory. And that may make strides to get this done.
Matt Klink, Dante Mills, always appreciate your expertise, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.